All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation Podcast. Today we will be discussing, analyzing, and reviewing Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir? Question mark. Is that right?
Yes. Not Andy Weir. So this month we'll be raising money for Code Pink Solidarity Caravan. All of the proceeds are going directly to humanitarian aid in Cuba. They're currently raising money for to deliver essential supplies and renewable energy equipment and to help the people in Cuba. So that will be linked below if you are able to donate.
And if you'd like other content outside of the podcast, please check out our Instagram and TikTok at Literary Liberation and Twitter at LitLibPodcast. I'm your co-host, Mariah, and you can find me at Hungry Rye on all social media platforms.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen. You can find me at TensDB on all social media platforms.
The day has finally come. This was, Kristen, was this your number one?
No, Carl was my number one last year. This is number 2, I think, technically. And my top reads.
This is one you've been waiting for.
2025. Yes. Well, and I also did a reread for this episode specifically because whenever this comes out, I think the movie is coming out tomorrow. So, like, this Saturday coming up, I will be seated. I'm simply 2-seated. I will be in the IMAX theater watching Project Hail Mary on the big screen, which has great reviews coming in so far. I think even Mariah's going to go see the movie, and Mariah never goes to see movies. So
I'm going on Sunday, and I found out that at my theater, they now have, I live in like a small town, I guess, but they have those fancy chairs now that like move or whatever that give you the extra experience. So I paid to have the fancy experience for this movie because I think it's going to be interesting because I've not done that.
It won't be the same as 70mm IMAX.
I wish we had that, but
I mean, our closest one is 2 hours away, so we will be driving 2 hours to go see it there. But yeah, this is one of the books. Me and Tyler read it last year. It was supposed to be a buddy read with Mariah, but Mariah literally never picked up the book, so me and Tyler just read it together, and we were obsessed with it. It was his favorite book. I think technically, I mean, he loved all of Carl too. He loved it last year. We've been so excited for this movie. We love the book. It's something that, like, it sits with us. And if you don't know anything about the book, I think it's best to just go in completely blind. I don't know how Mariah feels, but I think because you're put in the shoes of a main character that doesn't know what's going on either, so it kind of makes the most sense for you to not know what's going on, because basically you're following a guy who just wakes up in the middle of space with no memory or idea of what's going on, and he's slowly gaining his memories back, and you go with him on that journey to why he's there in the middle of space and what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it without saying a whole lot about the plot, which I think if you've seen or read, which I haven't read The Martian, but if you've seen the movie The Martian, it's very similarly paced, but this is more of like an interstellar sort of vibe, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't realize that this book came out in May 4th of 2021. So it's not the newest book. And I think it's interesting that it's just now getting a movie adaptation.
Apparently, from what I've seen, I've been watching a lot of press for this. And Ryan Gosling is playing the main character, Ryland Grace, in the adaptation. And he was talking about, he got the manuscript before it was even officially published. So this movie has kind of been in the works for a long time, before it was even published officially. Which movies take a long time to make. And yeah, I imagine there's a lot going on, because it is set in space, so they have a lot of space like effects they have to do, which that's probably a lot more demanding than just like a typical like literary fiction novel would be. Like, this is science fiction to its core. And I think last year this really kicked off. I read a lot. I think science fiction, I think I might have read more science fiction last year than fantasy. I can't remember. They were both really close last year. And I feel like this kicked off me wanting to read a bunch of science fiction last year, and rereading it again this year is like, this is like the pinnacle of sci-fi. I think it's one of the best sci-fi novels I think you can read.
It makes sense that it won like two different awards for science fiction. Like it won a Geffen Award for Best Translated Science Fiction Book in 2023, and then it also won the Audie Award for Best Audiobook in Science Fiction in 2022. It's won at like at least
It won the
five as
Hugo.
of right now. A Hugo Award. There's a ton, and I'm curious if the reason that, like, if you said Ryan Gosling got the script
Yeah,
early,
he said he
but
got the manuscript, so I think that's like basically like the arc before it's even like
I
bound at
feel
all.
it makes sense. Like if you read this book, it makes sense. It's very like cinematic in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But also Andy Weir has been in the industry for a long time. He originally got his start, to my knowledge, from Blizzard. He was one of the
Well,
people that worked on Warcraft, and then he ended up getting fired because he didn't fit into the crunch culture. And if you want to know more about that, you should check out the book Play Nice by Jason Schreier. It really gets into the depths of Blizzard more specifically, but I do remember there being a whole portion of it talking about Andy.
well, I think Andy Weir, he also was like some type of like scientist sort of thing. Like he has like a background in like engineering or something in math, I'm pretty sure. So then that kind of makes sense because like even though this book is science fiction and like it is heavy on the science, I think it's very accessible where you really don't even have to have like a super sciencey brain or super big understanding of that stuff going on. I think it's very clearly explained. It's very easy to comprehend and understand what's happening. I don't know. I mean, I know Mariah has a pretty good STEM background, but I think without, like, I don't have any besides like high school.
Yeah, I mean, it was all cohesive and coherent and logical in the way that it's built and explained. Like, I wasn't ever sitting there thinking, this doesn't make sense because of my background, which I'm not like a biologist or anything, but I just really fucking like math and like software engineering and shit. So that's where my like background education is. It's done. There's a lot of exposition, which I can see people not liking
You
if
say
you're
people
not into
not
that.
liking, but this book
It is
has what,
highly rated, right? That's a
4.5 star
4.5
average?
star, yeah. A
Like,
1.2 million ratings, 173,000. But I can see, like, reading this, it was a lot. Like, there was some points where things were being explained. And he talks like a teacher, which makes sense because your main character is a teacher. So he's kind of explaining it to you. But there did come a point where I was kind of like, okay, I don't feel like I need it. Like I don't know, I kind of like conflicted on my rating because I did. We can get into our no spoiler ratings real quick. I enjoyed this. I think it's a really enjoyable story. The pacing of it is done really well, but it does read like a script. Like it, I can tell it was made for the movies,
I
and
mean,
I
I
don't
don't.
know how to explain it other than that. It's good, it's fun, but there is like some lines that are very corny, like they're like movie lines, and then there's a lot of um
But is
issues that will arise, and they feel like they were very quickly solved. Oh, I still enjoy it. I thought it was a 4.5 star book. I think that's an accurate rating, but it's just not like it
I
didn't
think that's
change my life.
also just how Andy Weir writes because I'm pretty sure people have that same criticism of like you were talking about The Martian, the book. That's his book still, you know? And so I think that's just whether or not you can get behind something that's more cinematic. I mean, I love the movies, and so I don't mind that. But I think this was one of my favorite books last year. I already talked about how much I liked it. It was one of those that are like I was tearing up. It's one of those books that I think it gives the vibe, and I think the movie, from what I can see of how the ratings of the movies are, where um Superman last year, like the vibe all over the internet had a very like hopeful vibe, and a lot of people were very they felt very seen and like represented within the media of Superman, whether or not it was fully accurate to like what the people that were behind the movie, whether or not they were trying whatever agenda, quote unquote, they were trying to push, sort of thing. I think it can have that vibe because the way this book is that it's I think it gives a lot of hope in society. It's a very hopeful and like while being in outer space, it feels very down to earth, if that makes sense. It reminds you that you're human. It's one of those like books,
This is
and what
gonna
it
be
means
like
to
a
be
blurb.
human.
We're gonna see it's in like 10's TBR, the blurb on the next special edition on the back. It'll be
but
down to
I
earth in space.
I mean, it's like one of those books that like for having only it's like it just shows the greatness of what humanity could be in a lot of ways, which I thought was really interesting because I don't think you did too much research on Andy Weir's politics, which I found this AMA from 13 years ago where he said that his politics specifically on social issues he's very liberal, and then he says on fiscal matters I'm conservative, but he says he works hard to keep my political views out of my stories. Nobody wants to be preached at, which is very interesting because I feel like even like obviously that's what we do on this podcast is like analyze these books through a political lens. And to say that you try to keep your political views out of your stories, even though like Project Hail Mary is obviously inherently very political as a book.
Yeah, there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of
There's a lot of
philosophy
government
in general
yeah, government
that are
entities
present.
are yeah. And so I think it's really interesting. This is also 13 years ago, so I imagine it might not, Andy Weir might not have the exact same ideas, especially with the rise of fascism. I imagine this is just the latest, most recent I could find.
Just take it with a grain of salt. I mean, the politics that are present in the book, which we'll probably get to in just a moment, it's not like
It's no
Matt did.
communist. It's not like overthrow the government and like corporations are evil, even really.
You can kind of tell he wanted to keep it apolitical by like the way it's focused on like what it's focused on. But it's one of those topics, the way that it's manifesting that it's
Because it's
inextricably
focusing on
connected.
self more than it is focused on like how like government impacts things. I think it's one of those stories that's very much like more of like what little thing you can do to help someone does make a big difference rather than it being like what a big entity can do. Does that make sense, I guess?
I think so, but we'll have to.
With
This is it. This is your warning. If you don't want any spoilers, pause it here. Either go watch the movie or read the book. I don't know how the movie's gonna be, so
everyone loves it so far. It's got really high ratings, so
hopefully it's accurate, but there will be spoilers. Obviously, it's the spoiler zone. We got to get into it.
um but getting in one of the main themes of this book is obviously like climate change and stuff like that, because the main plot of this book, I guess if you're at this point, you either have read it or you're not going to read it, or you've seen the movie and you want more discussion on it. And again, we're only discussing the book because at this point we cannot go see the movie yet, so we don't have an opinion on the movie. But with the main conflict within this is that there's this creature, alien, astrophage that is feeding off of the sun, and with that it's causing the sun to dim, and with the sun dimming it's taking the heat that is keeping the earth warm and going to cause a climate crisis more extreme than what we already have because of how fast the sun is deteriorating because of these little guys eating up all the sun's light, basically. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's like you're kind of steeped in. The initial you open up the book, you start reading, and you're in space, so
Mm-hmm.
okay, we're already moving, we're traveling. There's two dead companions, don't know why they're there. And then he's having these random flashbacks of like him being a teacher because he doesn't even know
Mm-hmm.
his own name. And his class that he teaches, like he teaches
Middle
like middle
schoolers.
school science, which
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that's fun. That seems like a really cool age to teach kids science. But to have
Probably not
something like this
nowadays.
go on, I have no idea what it's like
Probably
nowadays.
not post COVID.
But it is interesting to have kind of like this reverse climate crisis where instead of everything getting hotter, it's getting cooler because the sun is
Well, because
not going to be around.
Straw has like that line too, where it's like because of how much like has already been, because they notice pretty quickly that like the sun is dimming. They notice the Petrova line fairly early on, where it's like this line of like, which we learn later is the astrophage, and they're traveling to take the sun's resources and stuff. And Strat has a line of pretty quickly on too with a, like how fast like they're already undoing years of what the climate crisis has been doing because of just the rapid cooling of the planet. And so they have to like, they have like this whole like arc and stuff where we have to increase global warming production
Yeah.
basically to
There's a lot
counteract
of
getting cooler.
really creative things that are taking place in this that are like the what are like the small things like the lipstick on the pig, like what can we do now, like it's just like menial things that we know is not going to like fix something holistically, but we need to buy time. That's like the whole thing is like we don't have the technology to do this, we need to figure it out. So the whole point is that we need a crew to go and study up close to
This
really
other
understand
star,
precisely what's going on so that we can fix it.
yeah, because
And
there's
there's
another
only so
star
much
that's not
time
getting
that you're
affected.
going with. So there's a lot of math, a lot of science that's involved in like how do we get things done. And I think it's interesting how like Rylan kind of like gets roped into it
Yeah,
all throughout this against his will. But then he
yeah,
kind of like leans in, which
not really
is
though,
kind of cool.
but he doesn't really lean in. That's the thing. The whole time he is kind of against his will. I mean, I think Ryland's character is really compelling. I think even whenever like I first started reading this, I don't know because I read it last year first. I'm assuming I already knew Ryland Grace was going to be played by Ryan Gosling. I mean, he's got the same initials. Like I feel like Andy Weir wrote Ryland Grace based off of like a character of Ryan Gosling. Like to me is just like was so interchangeable. Like I feel like I couldn't even imagine another person being Ryland Grace. It was just so Ryan Gosling to me. I don't know if you felt that way whenever you were reading, but you already
Yeah.
knew it was going to be him.
I already knew, so it's I don't have a huge like frame of reference. It wasn't like when I was like 12 years old and I was seeing fan casts for Twilight. Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't anything like that. But he does fit the character very well, I think. But it's also like the way Grace, like although he is a very like well written character, he's written like a movie actor. Like the stuff that he says is like stuff that like somebody would say in a movie. I don't know how to explain this book any other way.
I
It's
mean,
very
I think
movie
it's
like,
just.
and I have said this derogatorily about Whale Fall, but it works in this case. Whereas
I
Whale
think
Fall, which is also getting a movie, I just wasn't super into. This works.
I think, but again, I think that's just your style. I think he's just right cinematically, and obviously that can work for someone or it cannot work. I think overwhelmingly this works for most readers because if you look at the Goodreads rating, I mean that 1.2 million readers, that number just doesn't lie. Like I think overwhelmingly, obviously you're going to have people that hate on popular stuff, and I remember whenever like me and Tyler were reading this, me and Tyler were like, Mariah's gonna hate this because she hates fun and happiness and great things that happen
I didn't
because
hate it
Mariah's a
though.
hater. I know,
I
which we were really surprised by.
I just don't. I try not to buy into the hype because I have been let down so many times by things that have been so hyped up, and you're so excited, and then
I think
you get to
this
it,
is
and you're just
adequately
like,
hyped.
"This is adequately." I do think that's an adequate rating, which is reflects what rating I gave it, a 4.5. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's. It didn't knock my socks off in a way, but it's like this is if somebody's getting into reading science fiction, this is a great starting point.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think what's so interesting to me too, the way that Andy Weir has, because like Ryland Grace gets roped into this, and then he's getting shipped off, basically straight over to China, to work with like the lead scientists and stuff on how to use astrophage and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to me a lot of the ways that they have. all of these different countries were deciding to come together, which I think it does feel a little. Which I think Strat does do a better job about talking it at the end, but at the beginning, it's very optimistic in a way that I think that America, mostly specifically and other like specifically like capitalist nations, would not be so keen on working with like places like China so immediately. Which to me too in this, I don't know if you got that vibe, but I feel like Russia in this felt more like the USSR rather than it felt like Russia.
Yes, and I think obviously this has taken place
And
before the like conflict that is happening between Ukraine and Russia, and NATO. To my
mm-hmm.
knowledge, I don't think this was happening in 2021. I think it didn't start until 2022. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. I don't know for
I
sure.
think it's right around the same time.
But it is very utopian. And to see this kind of collaboration, especially right now, like we already know, like shit is really bad. There's a genocide
Mm-hmm.
happening, and like nobody's doing anything about it. So why would they give a shit if the world was ending? Like, who
No,
is this
because
gonna serve?
you'd have people like Elon Musk that are like, okay, let's go to Mars then. Like, you know, like they'd have some, even though like Elon Musk would not be able to comprehend that like if life on Earth can't live anymore, then life on Earth can't like then life on Mars wouldn't work. But Elon Musk or like other dumbasses would be like, oh, let's just go somewhere else because that's like their whole like philosophy is stupid as rocks, you know?
That's kind of where I was sitting. So I didn't one. There's also like the random little throwaway about SpaceX collaborating with the efforts, and I was like, I don't think that's right. But that's just my own projections onto this. There's a lot of
Yeah,
really interesting ethical dilemmas and how they navigate things, like when they're choosing their crew, right? We know that whoever is going to be in this crew, this team that is going to die. Like they're not
yeah,
coming back home. But
it's a
also
suicide mission.
these people are not allowed to like be around each other really unless it's for like a
Yeah.
very random reason. They have to be so careful because they don't want anything to happen to them or the backup team, which they have a whole backup team. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting how one they pick things. Like Strat is making these really weird, seemingly weird decisions about who's going. She doesn't want women. Doesn't want women going. Doesn't want she's very particular about like was it nationality? Like how they were picking like the
No,
different.
it was mostly sex because she was worried about relations because this was also before they decided on whether or not they were going to be going into comas or not as well because they have to do specific studies. Apparently there's only like so many people that have this specific gene that makes it so that they can survive a long-term coma um within this, and so that's how they have to decide where they were still deciding whether or not they were going to have people in comas or not, where if you're going to have someone awake it's 12 light years away, 11.9 light years away from Earth, so that's 12 years of a very small crew where they I think she was worried about the interpersonal relationships with people and whether or not they can be professional because I mean 12 years you have no other people to be around, you know, either. And also how being in a confined space, no fresh air, you know, you there's so many factors that play into how people are going to react in those situations because she referenced to some study, I don't know if it was a real study either, that was done where they like put like 30 men into like a room or whatever and they started like they had to stop the study early because they were people were fighting and they almost like killed someone.
I think they. I mean,
I don't know if
if
the
I'm,
study was
is it
real.
obviously like the what it comes to my head is like Stratford, but that's not right.
No, that's the
Or is
prison experiment. But this is no.
yeah.
She said it was in Russia, so I
I thought
don't
they
know
did
if
it
the actual.
before, like the cosmonauts, because they were trying to figure out like going. Because that's still like they when they were initially going to like the moon,
Yeah.
right? The space race, it was a big deal. Or having
Hmm.
people in the International Space Station, you have to be vetted,
Yeah.
super vetted. Because if you, I, personally, I'm not. That's not me. I'm not that person.
I know I get really motion sick, so I know I couldn't even like I'd be throwing up on myself like taking off in a spaceship. So I don't even have to worry about that.
But I did think it was interesting how we have this element of like neoliberal feminism. Like, why don't we have the girls going
Yeah.
through with it. But also, Strat doesn't take into consideration that perhaps even like these seemingly heterosexual men may
Yeah.
change if they are
Develop.
together
Yeah.
until for
Lonely.
like
Yeah.
12 years. I don't know. Like, why not? Why not?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, and I mean, like, it obviously does have the discussion on those. I don't think it harps on them too much because obviously we learn that women do end up going on this trip. One of the fellow crewmates was a woman. Um,
Yulinov? Yulina? It started with an
yeah.
I, right?
I don't know. Don't ask me. And then there's the other guy too that went, but then of course they both die on the trip. So they're kind of like their characters kind of only don't really matter except for whenever we're in the flashbacks. Because I think like there's like a character like Dimitri. He was a very fun character. I liked his. He was silly and goofy, but then also like very stereotypically Russian.
I did see a lot of, not a lot, um, redact that, reverse it. I did see criticism of the kind of stereotypes that were accompanying the nationalities that were being presented. So, like the way that the Russians, they were like drinking and they were like
Mm-hmm.
very stereotypical Russians. The way that the Chinese people on they're like, it's, I don't know what the military in China is called, but like that was what they were using. Their aircraft carrier
Yes.
was not an American aircraft carrier, but so like the
Yes.
whole crew on this aircraft carrier, because they can't mess with astrophage on land because they don't want it to
Because they're worried
explode
at
because it's
the
highly
because so
volatile.
much. Yeah, there's so
So,
much
but
energy
also like
within
their
it.
mannerisms, it's some stereotyping that was brought up as a concern. I don't know how to weigh in on it.
I mean,
For
I
me,
think I mean like
because it
with
wasn't like
Russians.
xenophobic
No, I
in
don't think it
my
was at
eyes, but
all.
they are stereotypes.
Yes, I mean I
I
don't
don't
think the
know.
thing
I
is
mean,
I
Andy
don't think
Weir is like a white man writing. It's weird. It's weird. I genuinely don't know how to weigh in on it, but I
I
did
mean
also pick up on that.
I don't think any of the like stereotypes were necessarily even painted in like a negative light either, and I don't think Andy Weir necessarily had any sensitivity readers. Where again, I think that's something that is getting more normalized now, and I do think that like if you are going to have, I think the problem is with that, like we've gone 30 minutes and we haven't even mentioned Rocky, and that's what's crazy
I know it's hard
because
to talk about like the politics because we do have, wish we should. We have to pay homage to our extraterrestrial first contact because that's what this story
yes,
is, and that is like the what is being prioritized in the movie is the
yes,
first contact relationship, which I don't know why they are making the movie out to be. It's like the new age 2026 ET is what they're kind of making it out with the promotion and the way that the
mm.
trailers
Well,
are functioning. I find that interesting.
I think it's because how else do you get butts into seats? You know, yeah, do knowing like reading Project Hail Mary. I mean, look at what my description was at the beginning. No, nothing. You wake up with this guy in the middle of space. You can't use that to promote a movie, especially because that's one thing too with like movie theaters and stuff. I won't like there's this whole like discussion, like I don't know if you've seen like the Timothy Chalamet like whole discussion too about like movie theaters are dying and stuff like that, and to an extent they are, where people are not going to the movies as often as they used to, and I think that's a lot to do with like streaming and at home watching and stuff. People, and also like people can't afford to go out. There's so many different reasons why people are not going out to the movies. Not me though. I'm safe. Mark's safe from not going to the movies. But I think that this is something, this is how to promote this movie. Even Andy Weir came out and said like Rocky is the heart of the story, which is why they wanted people to see like the heart within it. Because I mean, I remember I watched the trailer whenever like the trailer first dropped, and I was tearing up because I just loved this book so much. And I saw it, I was like, I was upset they showed Rocky to an extent, but also I understand because I want this movie to succeed because I enjoyed the book so much. The book has already succeeded so much, but also a lot of the times I think adaptations get a lot of bad rep because it's always like, well, why watch the movie if you can just read the book and you don't miss anything? But I think it, from what I've seen, this is again what like reviewers and stuff have said. There are plenty of reviewers, movie reviewers that I trust that have given this the stamp of approval. So I have very high hopes. But they make it seem like it is Project Hail Mary, like it has the heart of the book, but it's still also able to be its own thing. So I think you have to show Rocky because how else would you get someone to go see this movie? You know?
I don't know. It's interesting. It is very interesting, and I'm curious how, because they gave a lot away within the movie trailers. Maybe that's just the way movie trailers are now, is you have
They
to.
kind of are. Low key, like I hate watching trailers. Like the only reason why like I was okay with watching like the Project Hail Mary trailer, I watched like the first trailer and then I've tried to avoid every other trailer unless we're at the movies. Uh to like pay attention because I think trailers now, there's so many movies that'll be like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this, and then you'll watch the trailer and be like, okay, I kind of realize what's gonna happen, which obviously it could change, but then nobody ends up talking about the movie because I think there's not enough mystery in trailers, which I don't know if trailers have always been like that, and I just never realized before because I was a child, too.
I don't know. I feel like there was a time where movies did have a little bit more ambiguity, and then in the
But more people
last
were going to the
5 to
movies
10
then.
years, yeah,
Since
it's
COVID,
gotten,
movies going has dropped off like crazy.
it's a bummer. I would say like around the time that like American Horror Story came out too, especially, you could kind of see like that was the trailer. I don't know if you remember the trailers for the original American Horror Story series when it came out, but you would get like
No.
a creepy doll, like it was random clips. That was it, and some like music, and that's how it like lured everyone in. But it's completely changed. I don't want to fixate too much on the movie because we haven't really talked about like Rocky and his civilization and how they are organized and
Mm-hmm.
how they even end up meeting, because that's like a huge
Yes.
deal.
Well, I loved their first meeting scene. Like whenever like uh like Rocky just like pulls up next to Ryland's ship and then
Beep beep, hey girl, we're
yeah, and then
both
he
here.
and then cuz I think like he goes out and like waves at him and then he has like his little robot on the hole like wave back and they just keep like doing that for like a minute. And he's like, "I got to go back in because I can't have him just keep waving." Cuz they're like he does his thrusters or whatever and then Rocky mimics it and stuff. And I mean, I think Rocky is just such a great character. I love him so much. That's my boy right there. Because I mean, he's just like such a amazing engineer. How he's able to create so much stuff, and they also have this great resource, Xenonite, that's just like the all powerful substance. I don't know what you want to call it, material.
Yeah, it makes it, I think what I like so much about Rocky and Ryland's relationship dynamic and just how they like it built is it felt very natural despite it being a quote unquote like a natural event.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, how else do you meet an alien life form that is one, it goes against what we think of like alien abduction, like they're just like sinister beings, but just another being from a planet who's being affected in the same way as you, who's also trying to solve the same problem, and then you guys want to work together and share information and materials. And it just felt the way they were able to, like Rocky is able to make a bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and Ryland's like, okay, I got a computer so I can work on the language aspect and work on, like, it was just really
Yeah,
like the collaborative like nature of this, and it just felt very like solidarity will always be the means of
will
pushing
prevail.
life forward. And I thought like even towards the end, like they're working on this all the way to the end. The sciencey bits we're probably not going to explore because I don't think it's
I don't
relevant,
think it's
but
super relevant, no, to know the
you
ins and
know,
outs of it.
when they have issues, they're able to work together and solve it. And we learn a little bit about like Rocky's planet and how their government and everything is constructed, how they kind of had to rapidly come up with a solution. And also, Ryland's educating Rocky because despite his information and his education that he has, they're still technologically behind, which is such a, that was like
Yeah.
the biggest plot twist, I think, is when we think of alien
Oh,
movies or
just being
books
more
or
advanced.
stories, they're so far advanced, but in reality they
They
weren't
were on the
that much
same
further.
level. They were like
Yeah.
relatively the same, which I mean, they do have that discussion too. Rocky and Rylan do, because Rylan's like, "How are we like basically the same?" And they're like, "Well, if we weren't on the same level, the other stars that have life on them, they don't need to come to Adrian to find out why Adrian is able to survive without having this issue versus like they'll be so technologically advanced they could probably just send like a little one of their own little beetles to Adrian and scoop up all their samples and stuff they needed versus because of the how both of these civilizations have enhanced themselves, they both have to send a ship and send a crew to do the investigation because they don't have that technology to be so far ahead. And I mean, like, it is just like a 1 in a million chance, too, because I mean, you have to think of how lucky it was that it's at the same time. Because one, Rocky's people, they came a lot earlier. They've already been there way before Ryland was. And then, not to mention, too, they had a lot longer for their planet to last because their atmosphere is different than Earth's, where their atmosphere is a lot more compact and it held a lot more stuff in, where Earth's atmosphere did not have that. So then that's why, like, Rylan was rushing all through while Rocky was a lot more trying to be methodical, taking his time. And Rylan's like, I don't really got time. And also, like, the lifespan difference, too.
That was another really big, interesting aspect is trying to teach Rocky about relativity
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't understand how much time had truly passed on his home planet and
Mm-hmm.
why Ryland could like he just that is a very hard concept to teach
Without
anybody,
having.
any persons. Even now, it's still so strange how it
It is really
functions and it
weird.
works.
Well, because, like, I mean, not that I've seen Interstellar, but I know that's, like, one of the main plot points of that, too, is how time and space is affecting you differently versus how it's affecting you on Earth because of the way that the Earth's rotation is and time is passing here. We're a lot more standard versus whether or not you're traveling at light speed, right? Is how that's going to affect your body and stuff and how much time you experience.
No. Anyways, what do you think happened on Earth for them to be able to succeed in defeating Astrophage, right? Because we realize that about the 60 or 70% mark, Ryland Gray sends off the different beetles that are off. He sent his information, everything he can. Like he's giving them the best shot.
That's way further
And
along, I think, though, to be honest, because he was originally going to fly back the stuff. He was actually going to fly back to Venus and drop off what do they call it? Tau Amoeba.
Tomoeba.
Talmoeba. He was going to drop off the Talmoeba on Venus, but because of the leak in Xenonite, which not really a leak, but because they ended up having to rapidly breed the astrophage or the Talmoeba so that they're able to get through Xenonite, and so then they got through. They ate all of Rocky's fuel, so Rocky gets stranded. So then uh, Rylan Grace decides, hey, I'm going to go save Rocky and I'm going to go back to Iridian with him and go there because to save Rocky, because if not, Rocky's died and his whole people die while they have that opportunity to send the Beatles for Earth to get that information back. So I think it's more like the 90% mark. It's like way at
Maybe.
the end.
I guess they solve the
They
issue
solve.
of Talmiba, but then it's a little bit later. We're kind of faced with this dilemma, and we're also coming to terms with the fact that Ryland has remembered completely that Strat had
Forced
put
him
him in a
on.
position, yeah, where he had to
Yeah.
go, and there was no
Where
other
he'd
option. He'd be so invested in it that he wouldn't stop.
give up.
That
Yeah.
which that's a really shitty thing to do, but also I think
I
anybody also would have done that in
I mean, like,
Strat's
because, like,
position.
obviously it sucks that Ryland was put into that position because obviously it just so happened that the two top scientists exploded, so they weren't able to go on the mission. But in reality, like, with how soon the mission was it also is incredibly selfish of Ryland himself to not volunteer to go on that trip anyways, because like I don't think there's a way that he could have adequately taught that girl everything there was to know about astrophage in the time period that they had. So I don't necessarily, obviously, like it does suck that he didn't have his own,
Like autonomy.
yeah, to do that. But also, you do, I think this is one of those things where it's like you have to put the greater good before yourself. And that's why there's so many people signing up to do that. It's like so many people that were like coma resistant or whatever they called it, and then also doing that, where I think Ryland represents a lot of people in the world too, because I like obviously not everybody's going to be signing up for a suicide mission. It's scary, and it's not even a guarantee that it will save everyone. But it's also like, why do I put myself at risk if it's not even 100% guarantee everyone will live? But I think ultimately what Strat did is right to do. You know?
Morally just.
Yeah, because you have to sacrifice a few for the many, right?
The ends justify the means.
Yes. No matter how much like it does suck. But I don't necessarily like I never really thought I imagine with the Beatles making it to Earth, because I know like Strat had that whole conversation too where she thought she was going to be put on trial as soon as Project Hail Mary got sent off, and that she loses all. We don't really know too much about her really either, like what her background is or why she has so much power within this, because every government in the world virtually gave her all this power. But I imagine if maybe she didn't get sentenced to anything, or maybe once they got the information back on the Beatles, they're like, hey, this is your thing, whatever Strat was doing. Because whatever Strat got Project Hail Mary and got results back, obviously, to save Earth. So I imagine she would still have some type to do it, or whoever like was next in her command chain. Like I imagine she had some sort of plan.
I think what I was thinking, like, what possibly happened, right? Because we know, like, there's no communication, the way everything's functioning. My
Mm-hmm.
head, my head was like, how do you get, because Strat has been saying, like, there's going to be wars that are brought out. People are going to be starving and hungry. And
Mm-hmm.
the only way for humanity to overcome such an obstacle would be to do away with the oppressive systems that one lives under, because there's no way. There's no way. When you have to
Yes.
prioritize the many, capitalism falls
Yeah.
apart. Like you can't. That's the whole thing. Is like capitalism thrives and functions off of profits over people, right? And you'd have
Mm-hmm.
to do away with that whole mindset in order to ensure that this species prolongs itself. So
Yeah.
in my head, they
China
succeeded
took
in the
over.
revolution.
Yeah.
Two
Well, because
different
I mean, China
options.
already had so much power within this, which, because again, like, I think what's really interesting too, like, being, like, a lot of this book is set on, like, the Chinese, like, it's not quite international water. I don't think it's, like, off the Chinese mainland and stuff like that. And, like, him to not even, like, mention, like, socialism, state socialism, whatever you want to call it, is really funny to me, because then it also goes back to like Andy Weir being like, I'm apolitical in my novels. You know?
Yeah, especially in 2021 when this came out. Like this is
Well,
right
this came
after
out,
the 20.
yeah. Well, because his thing came out 13 years ago, the AMA. So again, that was just the most recent thing I saw on his Wikipedia page. If somebody's got something newer where he's like, I'm a comrade, send it to us. Let us know. Well, then we'll probably read more of his books.
Do we think he owns a Tesla though because of the SpaceX line? Is
I
that
don't know.
relevant?
I think more people than you would like own a Tesla.
I see them all the time, and
Oh,
I
I see a
stare at them
Cybertruck
and
every day.
glare. I'm like, ew.
They're so ugly. Um, but yeah, I do think, I don't know. I mean, one could hope that like the revolution succeeds, because that's what we as Marxists would view, but then also because we have that perspective, that's what we're gonna see. Versus like some anarcho-capitalist is gonna be like reading this and be like, oh well, the corporation saved us or whatever, you know. Like that's would
Just
be
some
their
stupid
perspective
shit.
because
But the difference
we
is
never go
we're
back to Earth.
correct. We're
Well,
always
yeah,
right. And no.
but
But I
that's the
thought it was
thing
interesting with Rocky's world and how they function, and they don't really have like a government,
they
or
kind
they
of
don't
do
manage things. They do, but it's not like
because they said like the people in
oppressive.
no, well that's the thing. They don't really it doesn't really go into that and then because there is like a thing where it's like there is a line where it's like the higher ups decided that they would refuel my ship or whatever. That's what Ryland says whenever he's there, but he decided against it because he doesn't want to leave arid, you know. He loves all his Iridian little students. I just love that scene at the end whenever he like goes to his little classrooms and he's got a little
His
class of
piano that he like
yeah,
plays
his
his
organ.
words on. Yeah.
Yeah, where he's got all his little students, and I it feels really full circle in that moment too because like all he really wanted to do was be a teacher, even though like Ryland Grace does have like a background where obviously he wrote some paper where he like believed that not every single life form has to have water in it, which so far has not come to fruition in this world. So, it's just really interesting, well, because he wrote that and then like he was kind of like pushed out of the science community. They're like, wow, you're stupid as rocks for even thinking that like water couldn't be around, blah blah blah. Which is why again he gets pulled into being the astrophage because they assume that it doesn't have water because it's living on the sun. And how can you live on the sun if water's boiling point is already like 212 degrees Fahrenheit when the sun is way hotter than that? But I love seeing the full circle where Rylan gets his classroom back and he gets to be a teacher again. It's just so wholesome, you know? Like, it's a very wholesome book.
It's a very balanced book in that way. I thought it felt
Mm
like the way it concludes, it's great. You're
hmm.
not
Mm hmm.
left feeling like you had a meal and it wasn't satiating. Like, this is a full meal. I'm not too
No, Andy
full.
Weir put his old Badusi into it.
That he did. That he did. He should
I
have
mean,
turned this
I love
into a
this.
video game. That
A video game like Starfield. You don't know what that
yeah,
is, do you?
something. I have heard of it. I just haven't, and obviously I
Heard
didn't
of it.
fucking play it.
I don't know. I do think it's a very wholesome story. I mean, I think Rocky and Ryland's relationship are such a major point in the story, and I think that their relationship is so beautiful too. Like it's such a beautiful thing. They're best bros. They're best a couple of besties.
It's very sweet. I think there's just something given, you know what we've talked about it like the last couple of bits. The world is a really shitty place. It's not
Mm-hmm.
good right now, and this was just like the hope core, uplift
It
your
is Hope
spirits.
Core.
And it's not like inherently problematic. There's not like a whole bunch of like really bad themes where you have to be like, okay, this is
Yeah.
just nice. Like, this is something nice that I think that I would encourage other people to read with each other, because also again, like, this is, you could get back into reading by reading this.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see this is a better entry point than a lot of things. And generally, I think science fiction is probably the best genre for people to get into reading, in my opinion, because a lot of science fiction is, there's a lot of like social commentary present.
This one works really well too because it's not too science fictiony where you're in like a whole another world or realm or universe like going on. It's still very grounded. Again, like what I said, it's very down to earth with it being in space. Like it's got all of those elements where it is fantastical, but you have these flashbacks and these different scenes being back on earth that remind you what it is to be human. And even like Rocky and Ryland's friendship is so human, you know, so collaborative and so positive. And that even though they're two completely different species, they're able to build something great together and save the world. Rocky and Ryland save stars.
Now, if only people could use this as a means of generating empathy for people that they perceive as completely alien from themselves.
Yeah.
Now, that would be the ideal means of using this book as a tool to kind of like connect, because like I imagine we could get a lot further in this world if we were able to collaborate and work with people who have been deemed as terrorists, as communist, as socialist, however you have it. They're always deemed like the bad ones, the evil ones, and this really like punches a hole in that narrative because it is like hope core, you know.
Yeah.
I think it is a bit of a stretch, a bit of a leap, but that's like what we do here.
It might be a little bit too optimistic, but sometimes with the way the world is, I think we need a little optimism right now.
Do you have any closing thoughts that
I don't think so.
that you wanted to discuss that we forgot?
I'm really excited for the movie. If it's not good, trust me, I'll be the first to say it too. But I don't imagine so. I really, from what I've seen and from the people that I trust online that usually have pretty good takes, I haven't. There's no reason why. I've seen so many people that are book lovers too, because I mean, obviously, this is a beloved book. Everybody that's read the book and already seen it, because there's been some early screenings, I haven't seen one negative review, except for Variety, and Variety hated on Sinners, so they obviously don't even know what they're talking about.
Like the magazine Variety?
Yeah, like they,
wow.
yes. So they were hating on whenever Sinners, like I guess it didn't make as much money to like recoup their losses whenever it first came out, but it was whenever everyone was like praising it and stuff. I was like, well, this movie doesn't make any money, so people don't actually love it, blah blah blah. But then it did eventually make more money, and then it never said anything. And then now, like whenever like the first reviews of Project Hail Mary are coming out, it's like this is just another send guy to space science fiction movie, where it's honestly so much more than that. And I think if you just get that out of it, you're like watching. You got to be watching the movie with your eyes closed, because if it's anything like the book,
I think it's gonna be a good fun time. It is a long time.
I think so too.
It's gonna be fun, and I'm excited to say
so.
I will report back with how it is sitting in the chairs that move. I'm scared. I don't know if I can get popcorn or drinks. I don't know how that works.
I mean, I think you can. I think
so much that could happen.
I think
in this.
The seats have settings where you can make them as intense as you want it to be.
I got a full send. I'm gonna throw it on level 5 danger mode.
I think I would throw up. I mean, I just get really motion sick really easily.
Dang. I don't know.
I get really sick.
I'm excited.
Really easily.
It's gonna be interesting. And then our next book that we're reading is completely different. Yeah. We've been doing a lot of like the books. We're not reading anything similar back to back. No. The next one is Love of Worker Bees by Alexandra Kalante. This is our book club read, and it is
over on Fable.
I think
if you want to join us on Fable, probably it's old.
A translated work. It's like literary fiction.
On Fable, join us, LitLib Pod on Fable. You can join the book club and read along with us. Put your thoughts. I think it's a collection of short stories, isn't it?
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3, and it'll be very.
So that'll be different. I don't know. Have we done it? We haven't done a short story collection. I don't think at all. On here.
Not off the top of my dome.
I mean, we've done short stories, but we've never done a short story collection. But then that'll be it for March. So other than that, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're over on YouTube. Leave a comment below. You can also comment if you're on Spotify. We get those. I don't know about other podcast platforms. I think you can review us if you're on Apple. Give us 5 stars if you want. But other than that, thanks for listening, and thank you, and good night.